So pretty quick, we are going to talk about hardware today, so figure we'll start with kind of hardware spec side. If you haven't been here all along, the beauty of Windows Phone is that we have one operating system that just extracts all the hardware from you. We have a guaranteed hardware, a minimum specification that everybody will need, right? And you're coded to one Windows Phone API, regardless of the type of hardware you're running on, right? So for example, if I'm running on right now, like I'm running on Samsung, I use the exact same API to interact with the camera location. I don't have to worry about drivers. I don't, it's higher level API. It's all Silverlight anyway. So that's the beauty of it. This is the minimum hardware spec that everybody has to meet. Again, this is a minimum, so you should expect, or there'll be a little bit better stuff than this. Like some people might have 2 cameras instead of a single 5-megapixel camera. There might be some extra sensors. For the most part, everybody meets, or definitely everybody meets at least this spec. I don't think I've seen any hardware that I can tell you like, wow, like there was one with 3 cameras or anything way out of the ordinary. But there is innovation, and the beauty of it is there will be a lot more variety of hardware as we go along, of course.
Excuse me.
Go ahead.
What was the proximity sensor?
There's a proximity sensor on the phone.
That does what?
Yeah.
Senses the proximity of what?
Oh, like it literally sends a signal against something and then detects how quickly it bounces.
Seriously?
Yeah.
As a standard sensor on all the phones?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
The caveat with the proximity sensor and why we want to cover it today is that it's not exposed by the API yet.
Well,
But it will be there for other stuff. I mean, that's how most guys, like, well, not like, certain scenarios work based on that, right? Like how far I am from the wall or something like that. So yeah, you'll be able to detect it.
So how far can it detect down?
What?
Oh, what's the distance limit?
To be honest, I haven't tested it enough to be able to tell you, like I've seen little demos where I was 3 feet away, 6 feet away, and it seemed to work. But I don't have a good idea of the hardware spec. I haven't played with it enough. I don't want to guess. If you drop me an email, I'm happy to give you an answer. It's JAIMER at Microsoft. Go ahead.
This is the only interesting thing in the whole slide.
That is the only interesting thing. Well, because the rest of them you do, right?
Well, the rest is kind of
The rest is standard phone.
standard. That's,
Yeah.
is it directional? Is it sending a radar beam? It's really cool. That sounds really interesting.
I haven't played with it. How about this? I'm going to now finally my apps are done, so I'm going to go back to doing some blogs in the next couple weeks. I'll try to get the details, or I'll do like invite somebody to our show and then ask them everything out.
It does a return to distance.
It's a what?
Calculation. Does it return some kind of distance calculation?
Yeah, like how far you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. But let me get the details because I'm genuinely embarrassed. Where like I don't want to tell you something that's wrong and then I'll be like feel bad about it. So that's just kind of where we're at. But it's standard hardware again. It's the beauty of it is we abstracted from you. This demo should be ready. So let me show you these, which is what we're going to do today. Because we'll be in and out of demos real quick. So I do have real phone today. And what we have, this is not a standard feature on the phone, but this is just regular standard Samsung phone. And what I do is I can do USB out to project. It's not a feature on the phone. It's something that we use for demos and stuff like that. So even though it's a really cool feature, I hope they eventually add it to the product because it's kind of nice. Like you can get really 30 frames per second projection. As I move my finger, you'll see here. I put my finger on the screen. It gives you a little bit of that yellow. It's not very capturing the touch for that yellow thing is not very good. It's good if I drag if I drag stuff around. Fast clicks are kind of too fast for it to kind of really capture. But for all the demos we will be doing, we will be using these. So I'm running everything I show you is on a real phone. And he did this Windows Phone application 1 or 2. So this is his demo that had maps. Ooh. Okay. You can see that it's real because it didn't get a location out of it. So, I know why. Okay, I should have done that for you. This is my demo phone, so it doesn't have a SIM card. And I also flashed it earlier so I could do projection and I don't have wireless set up in it. There's no chance we'll be done before 9, otherwise I'll tell you. If somebody wants to see it afterwards, I'll show it to you outside. We'll get it on the network, and then you'll be fine. That should be, that's it. It looked good. Oh yeah, it looked fine when I tried it earlier, and I said it looked pretty. The reason for it is because I was using the USB, and I could tether my phone through USB through Zoom and get on the internet. But once I turn it so that it did USB projection out, I lost my internet. I'm getting to trouble like that. I'm trying to be a nice guy. Say, yeah, we'll show your demo, dude. Now I'm like looking like a moron. No more than usual. So cool. So let's get into touch real quick. With an hour, I'm going to go quick. Stop me if you see anything interesting. If you write touch on the desktop, this is the exact same architecture that we have on the desktop. If you know like WPF and Surface Touch, it's the exact same, very similar architecture where we have abstraction from the driver, and then we have these kind of gesture services that do most of the work, and then we dispatch messages to the application. So it's not different from Windows Phone standpoint. We have controls, so when if you go in there and download the controls, most of the controls are already touch aware. We discussed most of these before. All of our controls are already touch enabled because if you're coding a Silverlight app for desktop, you're coding to mouse events. If you're coding on the phone, you're coding to touch events. But we don't want you to rewrite your code. We want you to share your Silverlight 3 code on the desktop. So if I put my finger down, you will get a mouse event on the controls. So all of that comes ready. Controls that go beyond that, specialized for touch. The text box, whenever you put your finger on it so that it gets focused, it automatically shows a SIP. If there's a SIP in there, like if we need to do a software input panel because you don't have a keyboard. The web browser control, which is a full-blown web browser control that we have on desktop. We covered that in the last session. It has gesture support like pinch, pan. That's a typo. Interesting. These are, by the way, I gave these slides to somebody. I wrote these slides 3 months ago. I gave them to the image learning guys, so they presented them on their image learning course, and I've already seen 2 or 3 typos and bugs. So, we'll do pinch, pan, and then we'll do the actual zoom, where we can actually draw something in there. So that double is not there. It's a typo. Scroll viewer control has flick and pan, gestures for support. If you know scroll viewer, if you know Silverlight, our list box is made of a scroll viewer, so pretty much any list that you put on the box already will have scrolling support, like flicking support, without you doing any work. Right? And then we've added panorama and pivot controls. They're finally in, and then and they have obviously the flick support that you need in order to run a panorama or a pivot. It's already there. And then we've added new controls that are in the Silverlight toolkit, which we just announced a couple of weeks ago. The toggle switch, the context menu, and the daytime pickers, and they all have touch support, so you can scroll and do all the right things. Pretty much, you don't have to do anything. Like literally, you'll be coding to controls, and you never ever have to worry about touch unless you do something specialized. As we get into touch, real quick, a recap. There's 3 different types of touch in the Microsoft world, or 3 approaches to handling touch. And we'll kind of cover all of them, so I'll introduce them real quick so that when I get to APIs, you understand what I mean. Rag touch is straightforward, right? This is like, hey, I need to do finger painting, or I need to do something pretty advanced, and I need access to every single touch. Like I want to know as your finger is moving around the screen, I need to know every single detail, like what was up, what was down, whatever moved. And that's what we call rag touch, and we'll have support for that. The next one that we have is support for gestures. Gestures are kind of predefined actions, right? 1 or 2 finger actions. Like if you have a phone, you put your finger down, that's a tap, right? If you put your finger down and you hold it, that's tap and hold, or just a hold, and then the context menu shows up. Move your finger up and down. You'll see the gestures in a minute. All of them in the slide. So pretty much these are predefined actions that you're doing for your application. If you're not doing something like you're not doing a drawing application or something like that, gesture support is usually pretty good. Right? If you're just writing controls and flicking stuff around, or moving objects around the screen, gestures is usually pretty good. And the last one, which is a little bit more advanced than gestures, is what we call manipulation. And manipulation is usually kind of a higher level thing from gesture. The problem with gestures, like gesture is a really cool concept and it works great and it's very simple. So it's a nice abstraction. But the problem with gestures is that you cannot, like gestures are predefined actions. So if you think about it, like, there's a predefined action for zoom, or pinch and zoom, which is like, hey, I'm moving my fingers, closer together or farther apart, right? If at the same time that I'm doing that, I'm also moving my finger around like translated, gestures doesn't work that way. It detects one gesture and then it detects the other, right? It doesn't have support to be able to do both at the same time. Manipulation does. So manipulation just says, look, put your two fingers, or put two fingers on the screen and move them around, and I'm going to give you a matrix that tells you what you should do to the object, like what you did to your finger. So if you move them and, if you translate them and you actually, rotate them at the same time or something like that, a manipulation will normally let you do that. And I say normally that you do that because on the phone, support for manipulation is actually, I wouldn't say, too limited, but pretty much the phone does not detect the rotate. When you do a manipulation, the phone does not detect rotate. So the phone, by default, the manipulation support is for scale and for translate. We have a problem with rotate because accelerometer and the phone can be in many different positions and all kinds of reasons. So, so the current platform doesn't use rotate out of the box. Several people have written wrappers that actually do rotate and they do a pretty good job. In a typical Microsoft fashion, we cannot ship software unless it works 100% of the time or 99.999% of the time. So, I know some of you are laughing like, dude, you have bugs. But, we tested for like, hey, there's 1,000 scenarios and we have to meet 999, otherwise it's not worth it. And this was one where we knew we could beat 999. So we just said, okay, well, we'll ship it later. But that's manipulation, it's just a combination. As I go back, you guys can refer to this slide. I'll try to put it online, but all of this is pretty, it's content that you can definitely get to very quick. These are just the support, the gestures that are supported on the platform. Tap, double tap, pan, flick. Most of you should be familiar with these gestures. If you're not, slow me down. And then the pinch and the stretch. Which is just putting your fingers together or moving them farther apart. So that's kind of the concept, right? Now we move on to, hey, how are we going to code again this SPI, this API? What kind of support is there? Right? And here's where we get into it. Anybody here done touch on the desktop? Right? So it's the exact same API. Period. So that's kind of a nice, like Silverlight 3 has support for touch on the desktop if you're running on Windows.